Make a statement in response to the social media information about what Dr. Besigye said, that we are paying salary of the president using borrowed money. We are paying salaries of all our public servants, including the MPs, using borrowed money. We are facilitating all government activities using borrowed money. It is on this regard that I want to make a statement in response. And I want to start as follows. Fellow Ugandans, I extend my warm greetings to you all and congratulate you upon the successful celebration of the 62nd independence anniversary. I have got information from some media platforms communicating alarming information that the government is so indebted that it is borrowing money to pay salaries, including the salary of the president, salaries of our civil servants, and also facilitating the movement and other related expenditures using borrowed money. I am here therefore to clarify to the citizens of Uganda that Uganda's budget is prepared based on the sound and internationally recognized principles. Let me start by summarizing the state of the economy. I will return to the specifics of the budget later. What is the state of our economy? Fellow Ugandans, Uganda's economy continues to expand. This is affirmed by the recently released quarterly GDP outturns for the second quarter of calendar year 2024, that is April to June, which showed that the economy grew by 6.6%. Additionally, the high frequency indicators economic activity show improvements in the levels of economic activity and positive sentiments by the private sector about doing business in the economy going forward. With government's continued investment in the ATMs are agro-processing, tourism, mineral development, and science and technology. Therefore, with the continued investment in these areas to grow the economy tenfold and other strategic interventions, the economy is poised to grow between 6 and 6.5% this financial year. Inflation is at 3% for the year ended September-June 2024, remains within our target of 5%. The exchange rate is stable and in the month of September appreciated by 0.33% against the US dollar to an average of Uganda shillings 3,711.31 per USD, compared to an average mid-rate of Uganda shillings 3,723.65 per US dollar in August 2024. As of August 2024, Uganda's merchandise trade deficit narrowed to US dollars 314.1 million from US dollars 342.8 in August 2023. This was driven by an increase in export receipts, which more than offset the increase in the import bill. Total exports in August 2024 amounted to US dollars 789.58 million US dollars, implying a 17% growth on the US dollars 669.69 million the same month last year. Foreign direct investment inflows to Uganda for financial year 2023-24 reached a record high of US dollars $2.034 billion, an increase from US dollars $2.971 billion recorded in financial year 2022-2023. FDI inflows have increased steadily year on year, largely reflecting the ongoing activity in the oil and gas sector as the country prepares for the first oil come financial year 2024-2025. I now the approved budget for financial year 2024-2025 and the sources of funding. Parliament approved a total budget for financial year 2024-25 amounting to 72.137 trillion for wage, non-wage, and development expenditures to facilitate delivery of services to the citizens of Uganda as shown below. Wage 7.9 trillion, non-wage 48.2 trillion, development budget 15.4 trillion, arrears 199.93 billion, and local revenue transfers to local governments 293.9 billion, totaling 72.136 trillion. That is being financed through domestic and external sources as shown below. Domestic revenue 31.9 trillion, which is 44% of the budget. Petroleum fund 115.4 billion, which is 0.2% of the budget. Budget support 1.39 trillion. Net domestic borrowing 8.96 trillion. BOU securities 7.77 trillion. Project support 9.58 trillion. And domestic refinancing, what we call rollover of 12 trillion. And then local revenue 293.9 billion. Total 72.136 trillion. Now, I now come to the rundown. And this will explain how we finance our expenditures. Because he was saying every expenditure government makes is financed by borrowed money. I now want to prove him wrong and give him facts about how our resource envelope is run down. Revenue to be collected by the Uganda Revenue Authority amounts to 31.982 trillion. This is now our money. Here you are saying all this money is used to pay debt. But let me show him now how this money is utilized. This amount is able to cover the wage, bill of government, and statutory obligations as summarized below. Domestic revenue is 31.981 trillion. I now want to run it down. The first knockoff is external debt amortization, which is 3.149 trillion. And this leaves us with the balance of 28.8 trillion. The second knockoff is the interest payments. The interest payments is 9.606 trillion. He was saying everything is used to pay interest. So we only pay 9.606 trillion, and this leaves us with 19.226 trillion. After the interest, we now come to wages and salaries. Wages and salaries across government for all our civil and public servants is 7.934 trillion, which is paid by our money collected by URA. And after paying wages and salaries, we remain with 11.291 trillion. And out of this, we also pay our pension and gratuity for all our pensioners. We also pay them using our money, our domestically generated resources. And this totals to 1.128 trillion. After this, we remain with 10.163 trillion. This 10.16 trillion, we now come to the statutory obligations. The first call on our statutory obligations is the Ministry of Defense, both operations and capital expenditure. The total budget for Ministry of Defense is 3.229 trillion, wholly financed by our internally generated resources. And after this, we remain with 6.933 trillion, which is allocated to programs to facilitate service delivery in accordance with approved work plans and budgets. Therefore, it is not true for someone to come and say, all the money they collect is used to pay debt and they borrow to pay government salaries and other commitments. Here are the numbers from an authority responsible. Let him also come with his numbers, but his numbers are not there. Now going forward, he can use this information to inform the public about exactly what happened, because this is a true source of information. We can see that the government is able to comfortably meet obligations on debt payments, including amortization, that is principal and interest, as well as wage, pension, and gratuity obligations and security obligations. And there is a balance for investment in the 10-fold economic growth areas and service delivery. There is therefore no cause for alarm, as the economy is on a sound footing and the budgeting is done to address the government's priorities. We are placing emphasis on fiscal consolidation with enhanced focus on increased domestic revenue mobilization, controlled borrowing, and allocative efficiency and effectiveness. I also want to assure the country that all the debt that has been acquired is for economic infrastructure projects to increase the competitiveness of the economy. The repayment of the debt is programmed to be done over a period of time in line with our debt repayment capacity. I thank you very much for listening. There are no assumptions in the figures. The figures speak for themselves. We approved the budget of 72.136 trillion. And we defined how this budget is going to be financed. This domestic source of financing is 31.9 trillion as is said. The question is not whether we borrow or not, because borrowing is normal. But what are you borrowing for? And that is where he's going wrong. We are borrowing for infrastructure, roads, electricity, and others. We are not borrowing to pay salaries of the president and the other public servants. That is where we go wrong. Yes. You need to note that included in the resource envelope is 31.9 trillion as URA collections. How is this used? We use it to pay salaries, to pay our statutory obligations, and to service other government priorities of service delivery. We don't use it it doesn't all go. For I have showed you in my statement that debt repayment for this financial year, not all debts are paid. We borrow and pay in the wrong term. That's why we call it programmed borrowing. I have showed you that this year's repayment, both interest payments is 9.6 and external debt repayment amortization is 3.1. That is what we need to pay this year. And all this can be financed using our money. So have I answered you, Kenya? So have you now known where it's going wrong? Yes, because I want to clear your mind. Thank you.